everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we've got a vlog video. I'm going to share a little bit more of the behind the scenes of what I get up to working from home. It's actually my last full week working from home because I'm going back to school next week. So from the 8th of March, schools are reopening here in England, in the UK. And actually my school has decided to do all of the asymptomatic testing for all of the students throughout Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday next week. And so actually our first full day back teaching is going to be Thursday. So I only really have 2 full school working days next week, and I have a little bit of time on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday to prep for that transition going back to school, which I'm really excited about. But to be honest, I think that there are quite a few things I just need to wrap my head around and get organized, and so I thought I would just quickly show you some of the things I've been doing with my classes, but also some of the things I'm thinking about planning, scheduling and getting done for next week, so I'm fully prepared. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section down below what else you'd like to see from me in the future now that I'm going back to school, and I'd be, you know, really happy to sort of make more videos and share more content because I've really loved doing that during these past few months. So hopefully I can keep it up, even with the busyness and the craziness of being a full-time teacher. So yeah, I hope you enjoy, and let's get into the video. I'm not sure it would be a vlog video if I didn't update you on my bullet journal. So if you don't know, I don't use a teacher diary planner, I use a bullet journal. And I think in the last vlog, I'll try to link it up in the cards above, I shared with you how I was sort of planning for the new half term. I obviously have done all of those tasks that I had, excuse that truck outside, but I obviously have completed all the tasks I needed to do for February half term and for the first week of teaching, but I just wanted to update you on how things are looking. So this was last week. I actually ended up not having to write all of the lessons, the lesson titles, because I had done that here already, and so to avoid duplicating the work I just left it blank. But for this week, so I'm currently on week 2, I actually spent 2.5 hours on Monday prepping all of the lessons, and I'll give you a little bit of tips as to how I did that in a moment, but I just used this as my checklist. So I scheduled what classes I've got on each day and the title for the lessons, and I pull all of that information up from my medium-term plan. And then I'm currently going to be working through populating my week 3 and week 4, so I can see everything at a glance, and that really helps to keep me organized. Just for reference, I've also got weeks 5 and 6, which are the total number of weeks for this half term. And some of the things I've been doing is I've just been adding deadlines to each date as I receive them in emails, and that helps keep me organized and keep, you know, a written record of those deadlines. And then these have been my weekly spreads. So I don't know if you've seen this one before, but anyway, so each day I schedule what I have to do in terms of live lessons, and then I schedule tasks for me to do. I haven't necessarily done that for Monday and Tuesday because I have this running list that I need to work on, but also Monday and Tuesday were fairly light days in terms of live lessons for me this week, so I didn't necessarily feel like I needed to keep track of every single thing I was doing. So today is Thursday. Hopefully this video will go live today if I can edit it in time. But yesterday was a full-on day, felt really good, and today I'm just going to keep on making sure that I finish off some of the things I needed to do. And I have had a science team meeting yesterday, so a few of you have asked me how I keep track of my notes. This is how I do it. I just write notes where they belong in time. I find that's the easiest thing for me because I'm very, you know, calendar based. My memory works by associating meetings with a time in my life. So I will remember that, you know, that meeting happened on that day and this is the information we covered. And then I've been writing a little list of my return to school. So some of the things I need to focus on is doing all of the seating plans for each of my classes. There have been a couple of classroom changes, so I just need to double check the structure of the classroom, the layout of the seats, and make sure that all of my students have a seating plan, just to make sure that with COVID regulations everything is fully met. I also need to double check that all of the classrooms have been sorted, nothing has been misplaced, so textbooks, exercise books, resources, etc. So I'm going to do that for my classroom, but also for my A-level classrooms. want to make sure I get some printing done for my, lessons next week, also do the lesson prep and also do some of the quick reports. I've got a couple of deadlines, but I need to focus mostly on year 13 because I've got parents' evening coming up. So I will just add to this list. I'm just going to leave some space below that so that, it can be somewhat flexible for me to then, add things and, complete them, use it as a little bit of a running to-do list and checklist to make sure I'm feeling confident and ready to go back to school. Now, I'm actually going to be spending a full day back at school next week. I think I'll probably go in on Tuesday, just to give me then Wednesday at home before I have to go back on Thursday. And I think that will be a nice balance. I'll use this as my main to-do list for that day when I go back to school. I'd be really curious to know how you guys organise your, diary and your to-do list. So let me know in the comment section down below. I know that a lot of my teacher friends use teacher diaries. A few of them use notebooks, but I haven't really met many people who use bullet journals. So let me know what you do and how you organise your to-do list and your diary and your schedules, just so I can get a few ideas and some inspiration as well. I wanted to share with you what I've been doing with my A-level classes. It's a new type of activity I've been trying. I've heard a lot about these types of activities in terms of looking at exam questions and mark schemes, but I've tried it for the first time properly, and I wanted to share it with you. So the underlying concept is to get students to be familiarised with exam style questions and mark schemes, and often my go-to is just to get my students to apply their knowledge, to answer the exam questions, and then we self-assess or we review their answers, and maybe we swap and do some peer assessment or self-assessment, and that's sort of my go-to. And sometimes I do some modelling, so I use my visualizer, and I will narrate how I would approach a question, and we sort of work together and I almost model how I would answer a specific question. But this time with remote learning, what I decided to do with my year 13s was to actually get them to design exam questions and then the associated mark scheme that would accompany that exam question that they've designed. And then I made a lesson pulling all of their exam questions together, and then I got them all paired up and reviewing and critiquing and analysing the exam questions that their peers made. And that was such a useful and interesting exercise. I got really good feedback from my students. I'll show you that in a moment. But with my year 12s, I also got them to work backwards. So what I did was I selected 2 exam questions. I split the class in half, and half of them worked on one of the exam questions and the other half worked on the other exam question. And instead of answering the exam question, I asked them to write a mark scheme for that question. And they found that incredibly challenging. So it was really interesting for me to see the change in how both of the classes responded to a similar type of activity. But the year 12s did definitely give me some really positive feedback that they felt like they benefited from having a think about the mark scheme, and then also me then reviewing what the actual mark scheme was and how they would have been able to tell. And that discussion was really valuable. So I'll show you that now on Google Jamboard. So this is the year 13 lesson. I'll just show you some of the other things I did as well. So we've been looking at sustainability, differences between conservation and preservation. I set them some pre-reading, and so we just collated all of their ideas here. So these are all of my students' responses during the live lesson. We then did a little bit of an activity on the endangerment of grey bats. We looked at sustainability practices for fishing, timber production, why we have to do them, and we looked at coppicing and pollarding. So this is a really great way of collating ideas, similar to what I do in a classroom. So maybe I will give them sheets of paper, or we will use the whiteboard, or we'll do a discussion. But I think this is very, very, great to encourage discussion and analysis of results. So then we started the task that I was just describing. So I gave them a little bit of a written spiel so they could always reference it as they were doing it, so they could come back to this page. And then I just showed them that they could navigate the pages here on the top by doing that drop down menu. And essentially what I did is I put a post-it note with the names of the students. So I gave them who they were going to be working with rather than them choosing. And these are the exam questions that some of my students created. And then the students that were working on this page, they essentially just annotated their feedback. So looking at the context of the question or the command word, what do they think was really useful or what they should change, etc. So I'll just sort of move through the pages so you can see the different ways that my students, you know, engaged with this activity. And then after I think I gave them about 5-7 minutes to do this, I then got them to find the exam question that they created, read through their feedback, and then what we did was we collated the general feedback in this grid, and then I sort of explained some of my feedback to them and what my main, you know, key takeaway points were. So that was really, really useful. And then with my year 12s, I decided to focus on extended writing. So I pulled up a 7-mark question and also a 6-mark question, and you can see here all of their annotations. I asked if I could use a pink post-it note so they can identify where I was writing, so I just gave them some probing questions for them to think about, and then after that, so you can see here in the corner, I put the names of the students that belong to each page, and I could monitor that by doing the drop down menu and seeing the icons here at the top to make sure that they were on the right page. And then after that, I showed them the actual mark scheme. So I didn't have these pages available during the activity. What I did instead was I just saved them on a different document and then I copied them over. And that just minimized them being able to access the mark scheme. But essentially what we did was we just reviewed what the mark scheme actually looks like, and then I got them to go back to their actual task and add anything that they would change. And then we had a little bit of a discussion about how we would know it by analysing the command words in the question and the context and the pencil icon, and it was really, really useful. So there's a little tip if you're looking for a different type of activity to do. Now, something else I wanted to talk to you guys about is something called a threshold concept. So over on my Instagram, I shared with you guys something that I've been working on to do with threshold concepts in science and biology. And I've been putting together a little document looking at cells in particular. But regardless of, you know, what topic you teach, what subject you teach, a threshold concept is essentially a concept that is subject specific that will keep coming up time and time again throughout the entire specification or throughout the entire time that your students are learning that subject with you at school. So the key thing with a threshold concept is how does that manifest itself in the schemes of work? Where are there opportunities for the students to really grasp that concept? And how can you use retrieval practice to maximize the learning that students can do of that particular concept? So something that I've been focusing on in particular is looking at the key threshold concepts in biology and looking all from, all through year 7 all the way to year 13. And what are those core concepts that are almost like a thread through the curriculum? So when are they introduced, that concept? When do they revisit it? When is new information added? And thinking about almost like a timeline. So what is the key information that students need to know at different points in time? And then what I've been thinking about is how does that then link to other topics in the specification? So for example, if I'm teaching plants, they need to understand what a plant cell is. So the plant cell is a threshold concept because it's core, it's a key idea that they have to know in order to then access all of the rest of the information in the topic of plants. So I've been sort of thinking about how I could organize this, as a knowledge organizer for my team to use, for me to use, for us to plan our schemes of work, but most importantly, for us to think about key opportunities for retrieval practice, for that retrieval practice to be really, really effective. Now, if you don't know what retrieval practice is, don't worry. I know there's so much jargon to do with teaching and learning and pedagogy, but essentially retrieval practice is to do with the recall of key information that should be in your long-term memory. And so if you're struggling to get your students to retain the information because they forget it, using retrieval practice based activities should support them with their memory so that ultimately they're able to retain a lot of the information that you're talking about with your subject, and that will promote them to make more progress, but also be able to access harder questions, so higher level thinking questions, because they've got the foundation knowledge there. They've got that memory, that recall, that retrieval of that knowledge. So in particular for science, the curriculum is so content heavy, and so what we try to focus on is, like I was saying with threshold concepts, if we know that there are key concepts and ideas that our students need to be really confident with, we are going to try to find opportunities throughout their entire experience at school for them to be able to retrieve those key concepts time and time again, just so that when they finish their, school experience, they leave school knowing those key threshold concepts really well. Now, commonly with retrieval practice, a go-to is quizzes, but I've been actually doing a lot more reading as to, the pros and cons of quizzes. And something that I came across was this really interesting article that was talking about how retrieval practice should be primed, first of all, so that students anticipate and know when they are retrieving information. But secondly, that the retrieval practice needs to be appropriate and it needs to be well linked with what you are covering in that lesson. And a prime example of this is I might be doing a lesson on ecosystems for biology, but then maybe I do a retrieval practice on proteins as a biological molecule. The link is not there. There's no point them retrieving that information for that lesson because it's not going to add any value to that lesson. So instead, with retrieval practice, you need to try and think about the concept that you're teaching and what are the core, pieces of knowledge that your students need to be able to retrieve from their memory, or at least refresh their memory, in order to then be able to access what they are covering in that lesson. So there's a lot more to it, and I've been doing a lot of reading on it, so it's something that's really interesting. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction if you haven't heard about retrieval, or if you don't really know much about it. I'll try to put some links as well on the screen for you to read, or some links in the description box below. Right, so here's a little example of what I was describing. So thinking about cells, with our curriculum, I'm trying to really identify what are the key things that my students need to know, and then what are the links with other units, practical skills, and also math skills. How I'm going to use this, I'm not sure yet. At the moment, it's just an early draft of my own, brain dump and thoughts. If you've got suggestions of how I can use this, let me know. I'd be really curious to read them. But you can see here that, this section looks very, very detailed. I've actually done a simpler version down here below. So these are the core concepts that my students need to learn about cells from year 7 all the way to year 13. And I've just listed them in this way. And then I took that and I added information so I could visually see, for example, if I'm teaching B2 mitosis in the Edexcel specification, I can then retrieve this information, right? Because that's a key concept that they need to be able to access to then be able to be taught mitosis. Or if I'm doing, for example, genetics in B3, I need to recall information about the nucleus. So I think this is just going to be a really good document to refer to. But something else that I've been reading a little bit more into is from the BEST website. Let me pull that up. Okay, here we go. Now, if you don't teach science, I'm sure there must be something similar for your subject. So maybe just have a little bit of a research. But essentially, this is incredible. What it does is it has for biology, chemistry, and physics, the core concepts. So those threshold concepts, and then there are associated activities, that you can download and you can have a look at. But they also have these, information grids. It's not exactly what I want, so I'm just going to use that as information to develop what I want to develop for my team. But this is just a resource if you want to use it. Something else you might want to look at, depending on what subject you teach and how you can improve your curriculum, is this document that UCL has published for free. So it's open access PDF for £0. So definitely grab hold of this. And it's essentially a document called What Should Schools Teach? And I'm just going to pull up the document here so you can see what's included. And you can see here that there are different subjects. There's a chapter for each subject, and if you find your subject, what it's going to go through is just essentially lots of information to do with the curriculum and how you should sequence and structure that curriculum. So you can see here for biology, for example, it tells you a brief history of biology, it tells you the current curriculum and possible improvements, and it's just a really good document to reference if you're trying to improve your schemes of work or your own sequencing of your lesson planning or cross-curricular links with different subjects. Looking, you know, at different skills, and it also then links other readings, so other documents that you might want to engage with. So if you're doing department meetings or if you're trying to do your own CPD, this is a really great starting point for you to develop your own understanding of what curriculum means and curriculum intent. Anyways, I feel like this vlog is already getting a bit long, so I'm just going to pause there. I hope you found all of these things useful. I'll make sure to link all of the things I've mentioned in the description box below. But I'd love to hear from you, so let me know, you know, how you organize your time, what, you know, strategies you use to get yourself organized with your planning and your to-do lists, but also let me know what other things you'd like to see in future vlog videos, especially now that I'm going back to school. As I'd love to still make videos, but I'm really not sure how I'm going to do that at school because I don't really film at school. But anyways, we will come to that when it comes to it. So anyways, I hope you've enjoyed today's video and I will catch you really soon. Bye!